I heard a pastor once talk about two testimonies. He's telling his staff about the testimonies of two men, one being the pastor's and another being a different individual. And the pastor's telling his staff about his personal testimony, how he grew up in the church, his father was a preacher, and he'd always served God and loved God. And he probably had some rough years in high school, middle school, where it was difficult to follow Jesus, but God was always his anchor, and he always had his faith to run back to. The second testimony was the testimony of a man who didn't grow up in church, and he was into a lot of worldly things up into his 30s, and the whole works: drugs, alcohol, loneliness, partying, everything, depression. But then he found God, and he found his redemptive power, and he found Jesus, who died to save us. And the pastor asked his staff, whose testimony is more powerful? The answer, you think, would be the man who didn't grow up in church, and he had this huge separation from God, and he wasn't close to the Lord at all growing up. And then he found Jesus. But the pastor tells his staff that the testimony that holds more power is the one being told. The news is only as good as it is given. The news is only good if it is given. That's what makes it good news, because it's shared. So for me personally, I grew up in the church. I've always been in church. My mom worked in the church. My mom's parents worked in the church. I have generational faith under my belt and in my lineage and in my blood. My testimony's good. When I compare it to somebody else who found Jesus later in life, our testimonies are just as good as one another, but they only get great and they only get better if they're shared and if they're given. God so loved the world that he gave. Giving is love. Giving is hopeful. Giving is good. Giving is a good thing to do. Caring is a good thing to do. So share your story with someone today. Connect with someone today. You never know what God is going to do. You never know the seeds that he's going to plant, the kind of things that he's going to sow into people's life with your story if you're just willing to give it. Let it be good news today. Whether my story looks different from my friend or it looks different from somebody else, it can be good news, but it's only good news if it's given.